Hi, today I'm going to be describing the differences between, or comparing and contrasting, the TRIPP model for injury prevention as well in compared to the Van Mechelen et al. Four-stage model. So let's begin with the old model. The old model had 4 stages. It established the problem, the extent of it. It researched the etiology, like how it happens, how does injury occurs. Then it goes into introducing preventative measures. So what can we do to prevent the injury? And finally, it assesses the effectiveness. Does that prevention that we've come up with actually work? And it does so by evaluating, again, the extent of the injury after the intervention. So it's kind of a circle. It goes back to stage 1. Now, the new model, the TRIPP model, uses 6 stages. Okay, it starts off with an injury surveillance. First of all, it looks at what sports are we predisposed to, or what sports are predisposed to certain injuries, and it gets an idea of injury prevalence and data and stats about it. Then it goes into establishing why the injury happens, how it happens, so the mechanism, and then it goes into developing a preventive measure. Now, this is where it differs from the old model. The old model it introduced a preventive measure, but it had no idea whether or not it fit the criteria of the sport. It didn't look at the context of it. Now, what the TRIPP model does is it goes into stage 4, which is ideal conditions. So under ideal conditions, does this prevention help? And then from after the ideal conditions, usually done in like a laboratory setting, you can then, number 5, look at specific sports and how the implementation strategy is going to work. You have to look at the safety. So one of the main questions that TRIPP model asks and isn't asked by the old 4-stage model is, are there safety behaviors, goggles, helmets, padding, are they useful? Are they doing what they need to be doing? And if we're not using them, what is the motivation behind that? So this is how that equipment is used to prevent injury. So this is a way for us to evaluate why more injuries are occurring if there's safety measures put into place to prevent it. And finally, it evaluates the effectiveness and the preventive measures in the implementation context. So what that all means is that it takes stage 4, which is proving in a laboratory controlled real life scenario, ideal condition scenario, that it works, and combining it with the safety measures and actual context of the sport and the injury, and combining it in a real world setting and proving that it's effective. Now, there's a lot of limitations to the old model, which is why we have a new model. The old model didn't ask those important safety questions. A lot of research before this did not even go past stage 2. It stopped at how an injury happens, but had nothing to do with prevention. It didn't do ideal conditions. It didn't actually show that it worked. And if you can't show that it works, it's not going to be adopted. Now, the TRIPP model does have its own limitations because it can be very difficult to understand. You've got 6 steps, and they all can be very confusing. In my clinical practice, this is going to take some time. I don't have any any experience with injury prevention. So right now, that is all new to me. So that's the reason I'm not using it. However, this is the first step. Understanding why we need to do it and how I need to do it is the first step in making a protocol that I can follow to help my injuries, or help my athletes with their injuries. So I hope that makes a lot of sense. I fully understand it now. It's really, really cool to me, so I hope it helps you too.